Good evening, Charlton fans. I'm Ollie Groom and you're watching 1905 coming live from the Valley. Here's what's coming up on tonight's show. We look back on Saturday's draw with Birmingham City and hear from Bob Peeters, Laurie Wilson and Joe Gomez. We also look back at the development squad's Premier League clash with... No, we don't. So we'll start again. We look ahead to Saturday's trip to Bournemouth, of course, not look back at Birmingham. We hear from Bob Peeters, whose pre-match press conference was earlier today, and we also speak to Igor Vetokele, as you saw there on the VT. And we're delighted to be joined in the studio by A.F.C player commentator Peter Finch and first team coach Damian Matthew. Good evening, guys. Don't forget you can send in your questions via Facebook. Just send us a comment on there, CFC official, or via Twitter using the hashtag CFC1905. So after that full start, we'll get right underway. Damo, it's been 11 games unbeaten. No one knows better than you, certainly, how we've achieved that. Been down to.
Outstanding start, Ollie, as you said, 11 games, and we very much take each game as it comes, and probably only when we broke for the international break that you look back at that stat and thought, what a great start, and a proud moment, I'd say, for all Charlton fans and for the players, and a fantastic achievement.
I mean, how's the mood been in the dressing room with the lads? Obviously, they've got to be absolutely with what they've achieved so far.
No, very much so. I mean, we all know the Championship well, and it's such a tough league, so it's only the international break, as I mentioned again, in terms of where you can actually sit back, enjoy what you've done, but actually then look forward to the games coming up and hopefully continue that unbeaten run, which is a challenge to go as long as possible.
The new sort of playing style this season has been evident for everyone. So has the training changed? Is it geared towards playing that playing style, and how do you get that through to the players?
I mean, I think it's ironic that we're here tonight, Pete, because everyone would see the standard of the Valley pitch this year as well, and that. So that, for me, that's been a big difference. The quality of the pitch. Everyone wants to play on a good pitch. Players are then confident. We've had good players over the last few years, and naturally we've bought some really good players this summer and recruited very, very well. But again, the quality of the pitch, the training ground's been excellent. So I must mention Paul Gear and his good staff down there as well. And that. So everything in terms of what we want and how we want to work has been top draw.
And you've worked under several head coaches. They're varying styles and different styles of management. How do you find them all?
Even Pete, you'll call them head coaches as well now. So
yeah, I have to.
But yeah, they're very much so. I mean, managers, head coaches. I mean, the terminology is the same really in a lot of clubs. I mean, obviously Bob's come in the summer, had an excellent start, and been very welcoming to all the existing staff. Obviously, his experience at another Championship club when he played, I think, has put him in good stead in that, because he was very successful in Belgium in terms of how he played, developing young players, which we've already seen already, how good he is with that. But also what I like about the managers that I've worked with, and obviously Bob comes into that category, is they're very inclusive and give them opportunities for his staff to develop everywhere possible.
We've all seen it on the pitch here at the Valley, and indeed away from home. We get the ball down, we play from the back. It's a vast difference in the style of play, but on the training pitch, what is being done to encourage that style of play?
I mean, obviously every day we work, and invariably, apart from a good warm-up with Lawrence Bloom, who will introduce the footballs as well, but everything is geared towards the football, and that's what players want. They thoroughly enjoy that, so the training is very sharp, very lively, very competitive as well. So, and then as I mentioned earlier, you look at the quality of Stephen Henderson, Tal Banahim, Yoni Burns, Igor Vetokele through the middle, obviously then with Johnny Jackson, our captain. There's good players, Chris Solly back and fully fit and playing. All the time you're mentioning them type of players, they're players who enjoy having the football. So again, it's confidence for me that we mentioned earlier, but also having the players that really want to develop and play.
So 11 games gone, a really good start. Has that changed the sort of the ambition for the, with the expectation and where you want to finish?
I think the expectation always rises when you have success, but as I alluded to earlier, we're very much each game as it comes. We've all been experienced in the Championship, and we're seeing it a lot this year as well. It's such a close division, and it can go even way in games as well. One thing that really impressed me this year with the quality of our team, I mentioned Stephen Henderson in goal, obviously the strength of the back players, but how workmanlike and as a team, everyone is doing that job really faultlessly for 90 minutes. And that's really important. I'm not saying we were let down over the last couple of years, but that concentration, again, the quality of the pitch, makes a big difference to the quality over 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a tough division, isn't it, the Championship, as we've seen in the last 3 years, but we've come across, I think it's fair to say, some of the better sides already, you know, the first 10 or so games. But who's really impressed you so far that we've come up against?
I mean, in terms of the ones who have shown the quality and they're up there, obviously Derby always for me are a good benchmark for this division. I mean, they went very, very close last year. Even this week when you're watching the international games, you're seeing Jamie Ward scoring for Northern Ireland, Hendricks sort of playing for the Republic, Chris Martin, Scotland involved with them. So you look at them and the quality of the squad that they've got, they're very impressive. And we obviously went up there in the Cup as well. Again, a very close game and that. So for me, they're arguably one of the best footballing teams, but also got that strength in depth as well that we all know in this championship is vital, that you can sort of keep your players fit, but then also be in a position to strengthen when you need.
You know, in training, and you're playing one of the top sides, does that come through in training, the players' attitudes in training? Are they suddenly think, well, we're playing Derby, we're playing Brighton, let's have a go at this one? Or is it the same level all the way through? I mean, we have. I mean, it's always something that's is complemented on our group of players, and whoever I know the new signings when they came in the summer, how sort of pleased to see the level of professionalism and that with our players. So I think it comes, Pete, really from we've got a real good group of players, very professional group of players, but also a very ambitious group of players and that. And they're ambitious, we're ambitious for them as staff and that, because we want them to play well and we want them to develop. And ultimately we want to win.
I think there's a mentality, as Pete was saying, we see certain sides and think they're going to be tough. But now, with us being 11 games unbeaten, do you think now our opposition are now thinking, no, we're going to Bournemouth on Saturday? Will they be thinking, you know, they're going to be a tough side to beat, no side has done it yet? Or are they going to be up for being the ones to break that duck, do you think?
No, very much so. No. I mean, they're a good club. Bournemouth, you've seen, they came 1 year after us, didn't they, in terms of their promotion, and credit to them. And they've developed their club very well. But we go with every confidence when we play any team. And we're expecting a very tough game, but also a footballing game as well. So if we can play our football and take our chances, then we're hopeful we'll have a confident day Saturday.
You've mentioned, you know, this is our third season up now, one season behind us, but do you think it's still, as we had that very tight first season up here, didn't we? Lots of draws, lots of, you know, and pretty similar this season, do you think? Or do you think the league has evolved somewhat since then?
I mean, I think the financial gaps is massive that we know. And I mean, you look at the quality of the teams that came down and obviously the parachute payments that they received, that always gives them a better opportunity than obviously ones who, like ourselves, who are sort of still building. But ultimately, the competitiveness is great, and that's why I really like the Championship, because it doesn't matter invariably how much money. If you've got money, then that brings its own pressures that we've seen with teams, i.e. like Bolton, who have suffered, and even Fulham this year at the moment are having a tough time. Whereas ourselves, we've just built very slowly. Obviously, since we've got a new owner, that allowed us in the summer to do things, as we mentioned, in terms of the pitch, and ultimately as well, more so about the signings that we were allowed to bring in the summer, definitely has helped take us forward to another level. And ultimately, our ambition this year is to finish as high as possible, and then we'll see and see where it takes us.
Okay, and looking ahead to Bournemouth today, Bob Peeters faced the local media ahead of Saturday's trip to the Goldson Stadium. Here are the best bits.
Bob, another international break's completed. Have all your players come back fit and well, or have you picked up any injuries?
Yeah, we're still waiting on Frédéric Bullo. He still played yesterday with Gabon in Burkina Faso. We'll be back today or tomorrow, I'm not sure. Benaim came back well, so he had a few days to recuperate, and now he trained today. But again, there's some question marks around a few players. Will they be 100% to play on Saturday? Okay, we will wait for tomorrow's training and decide after that training.
You said Bulow, it's a long way, isn't it? Has he got a chance of being ready to fit for Saturday?
I don't think he's going to be fit if you play on Friday or Saturday and Wednesday, long travelling. 9 hours of flight, so I think he will be not 100% fit. And if he's not injured, he might be in the squad, but again, we will decide that tomorrow after training.
Johan Berg Gudmundsson, he had an injury, didn't he, a few weeks ago? Is he fit for you?
Yeah, he's training at this moment, but okay, if you've been out for a few weeks, then you're not 100% fit. He's one of the guys who we will wait again after tomorrow's training to decide enough to be in the squad.
And getting back to the weekend, Bournemouth, very, very strong side at home. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yeah, we're aware that every team is very hard to play. You see again, okay, I think we did well first 20 minutes against Birmingham. At that moment, everybody thinks we're going to win the game easily. Then they came back and we made some wrong decisions. But in the whole league, that it's very tough to beat the team away. So there were some strange results again. So it shows that in the championship, everybody can get points from everybody. So okay, at this moment. We have a good flow, but Bournemouth away is always a very, very tough side to play. And again, we wait on tomorrow how many players for Saturday, but I think they will be ready for it, and we need to be on the best of a game to get something there.
Going back to that Birmingham game, have you been able to put your finger on why you started so well and then tailed off? No, I think we said at half time we need to press them high again and we need to be more positive, but maybe they were tired a bit, I don't know. Maybe it's in their head that we're still unbeaten and they rather get the point than lose a game. But for me, like I said it all the time, sometimes it's better to lose one and win one, you have 3 points. But okay, I can't blame any of my players that they didn't put all the effort in. Okay, we made some wrong decisions and the play was, especially after the first 20 minutes, was not brilliant. But okay, we're still unbeaten 11 games and for ages. I think we need to watch now on Saturday against Bournemouth, maybe after the international break with some good days of resting and mentally, hopefully they're fresh again, and then we will see whether it is a problem or it was one time. When it's one time, there is no problem. When it's going to happen 4 or 5 times and it's structural, then we need to get a solution.
Okay, you can see the whole of that press conference from earlier today on A.F.C Player. Okay, Damo, let's talk a little bit about you now and the club. You've been here since 2006, so you've been here a while. Tell us a little bit about your journey to the club and your evolution to the first team coach.
I mean, it's ironic because 8 years in September, and Mark Robson, who was the former youth team coach, I was at Chelsea at the time, done numerous roles there, and Mark sort of mentioned that he was possibly moving upstairs, sort of higher, in terms of first team, and would I be interested in the youth team role? Went through the process. I remember it clearly because you had the likes of, on the interview panel, Peter Varney, Les Reed, Ian Dowie, Steve Gritt and Mark Robson. So it was a little bit like five onto one, but 2 or 3 I knew quite well. Excellent interview in terms of the questions I felt they asked, and gave you the confidence to want to come to this great club. And my history was I knew Gordon Watson and Scott Minto as young players, 10, 11. We'd played for sort of county and for Kent. We then also played for a team, Kingfisher as well. We was about under 15, under 16 before we went off on our journeys. So I always had a good link with Charlton players. Also with Charlton people, Colin Clark, who was a good youth team coach, and Barry Wright, who used to coach and scout. So I've always had a good connection, and I've always been very respectful of the club. But more importantly, being a youth developer as I was at the time, you knew it was a great club, great opportunity.
A bit of success in the 2007-8 season. You talk about some of the players that have come through here. FA Youth Cup quarter-final, wasn't it, that year?
That's
John
right.
Joe Shelby, Chris Ollie, Scott Wagstaff as well, now at Bristol City, but that must be quite a memorable...
No, it was an exceptional team. I mean, unfortunately for us, and he's gone on to great things. Jordan Henderson scored the winner, and we've seen what a great career he's gone on to have. But as you mentioned, the players there were all exceptional players. I remember even good players like Rashid Youssef as well, and that at the time, in terms of playing in the youth team. Yada Mambo was an under-16 who unfortunately didn't quite reach the heights we were hoping for, which happens in youth football. But no, a great time working with Steve Avery at the time. We know he's been here for many, many years, and a great time to be involved in Charlton's development, and again, well backed by the managers and all the good coaches who were here at the time as well.
When we look at the first team squad now, there's quite a few young players. We've got Joe Gomez coming through, Ahern Grant. So what is the key to Charlton? Because they seem to be producing so many talented youngsters.
I mean, there's always been good people, Pete. I think that's really important. There's always been good people involved in the coaching setup. Then you're in a great area. You know, you're as close to Kent, London, Essex. So there's a real opportunity to recruit good players, and I know we've done that well over the years. But the most important thing that young players need, and this is club has always given it for many, many years, and we talked to Keith Peacock about it as well, there is an opportunity. So if you're good enough, you'll have an opportunity. Ultimately then it boils down to the player to take that chance and take that opportunity, but you've always got a chance, you've always got hope. Yeah. And any young player, I mean, there's numerous clubs around the country where they've got fantastic setups, but the players know realistically they're not going to get a chance, and that's really demoralising for a young player.
You see, and we've seen players maybe leave Charlton, go to bigger clubs, but you think, well, why are you doing it? Because, you know, as you're not going to get the progression to the first team, as you said, it's just not there, is it?
No, very much so. And you would just hope that this is probably the first time for a good few years at Charlton that there's real stability and there's no real need for a young player to go unless it's going to be the types of offers that obviously Charlton got in the past for Scott Parkers of this world. So if I was a young player at Charlton, and obviously going to sell the club in a great light anyway, but realistically, if you want to develop as a football player, you need to be at places like this.
Have there been players during your time at the club coaching the youngsters that you looked and thought straight away, yeah, he'll make it without a shadow of a doubt?
No, very much so. I mean, John Joe, people asked me the question. I was very fortunate to work at the other club where I worked, Chelsea, where there was some real good talent. Then there was the influx of money where they bought players, and there was some exceptional talents that you worked with and really enjoyed that time. As I came here and you had the chance to work with a John Joe Shelby, straight away you knew that he was going to be a top player. Not only did he have unbelievable ability, but he had an unbelievable drive to want to be a player as well, and the confidence to believe that he was going to be one as well. So he stood out a mile on that. And then you've also had the likes of Chris Solly that you knew was such a talented football player, and it wasn't a matter of would he make it, it was a chance of when he would get the opportunity to show that he was good enough and that. So there's different circumstances sometimes with young players, but two great examples of me of real talents.
And sometimes the younger players, it's useful for them to go out on loan, and we saw it, I think, with Scott Parker way
Norwich,
back, went out to Norwich and come back and just came back and was a revelation. Yeah. And sometimes it's just going on playing against men rather than in the development league or youth football.
No, very much so. You know, I mean, it's well documented now. The young players playing the 18s, they can progress to the 21s, but in between that period they might go on loan, or more importantly, if they're successful in the 21s, there might be that gap where they go out on loan before they get into the first team, as you mentioned. So the actual pathway and the processes are there now, and ultimately it then boils down to the player to want to take the opportunity and make something of his career.
Just going the other way, Damian, maybe putting you on the spot a little bit, but has there ever been an occasion where there's been a bright young player and you thought this kid's going to make it, and then it just hasn't quite happened for them?
Yeah, no, very much so. No, I mean, it's always a sad time, if I'm being truthful. I mean, people sometimes ask you the question when you're at first team level, when you're leaving players out, for example, is that tough? I always equate the situation to what you just mentioned, when you've got a real good young talent who you think has got the ability and has a chance to make his mark. And ones that spring to mind over the last couple of years, and that where you thought this is a talented player. Tamir Tuna, for example, was a real exceptional talent at Charlton, fantastic football player, and for whatever reason, could have been opportunities, could have been timing, the pressure that maybe young players felt at that time at this football club, is that he didn't quite come through. But he was at that given time an exceptional talent. So that's always a disappointment for a coach. You don't get frustrated because all you can say is that everyone has tried their best to help that young player. He ultimately at times has tried his best as well, and then they move on into other areas.
Is it that there's sometimes you get a player and you see he's got all that talent and ability, but there seems to be a ceiling in their development, and they reach it at quite a young age, and that's as good as they're going to get?
Yeah, no, very much so, Pete, in that. Because everyone can ask, we all can have opinions on players and we back our judgments, but when the push comes to shove, you don't know how they're going to react to certain situations. And then that's the case of what makes a good player, is that he can handle success, but also he can handle disappointment and be prepared to move on and sort of become stronger and a better player for that. So it's always frustrating when a young player doesn't make it, but as we know, they're here to have an opportunity to develop to the best of their ability.
Do different players need to be managed slightly differently? We saw John Joe Shelby, he was 16, he came on, made his debut and just blew everyone away. Scott Wagstaff was given his debut by Alan Pardew, perhaps maybe a little bit too early. Is it down to the individual sort of mentality thing, do you think?
No, very much so. And I mean, Charlton's always had good staff, and I think that's really important. And in my time that I've been here, the quality of staff that help different individuals, and you find that as well as a youth team coach. I may have a group of 16 to 18 players, but when I was a youth team coach, I had fantastic people like Joe Francis, who's now the full-time education welfare officer, Steve Avery, who I mentioned earlier, even people like Mark Kinsella, for example. And, you know, there'll be different times where you may go to different people to ask their advice, but also to maybe speak to the player to try and help that player, because I'm maybe out on the training pitch with them every day, coaching them, and ultimately you see that with us, and we're speaking to even the boss today. We have the boss, there's myself, there's Patrick and Guy, Ben Roberts with the goalkeeping coach. You also have Lawrence Bloom. So all of us, in terms of the fitness, Errol as well, you know, a major person in our organisation there on that, because players again may feel comfortable talking to Errol, but then they do with us. We'll be looking at things on the training pitch. They might have a little niggle that they need to speak to Errol about, solve that problem. Now they become a happier player on the training pitch. So it's about that unity. It's about that team spirit. It's about everyone working together for the success of really Charlton.
When you have a 17-year-old with the quality, we've seen it with Joe Gomez this year, do you just know straight away that this kid is going to be, at that age, capable in the first team? Do you just know, or is it a case of, let's see what happens?
Very much so. You know they've got the talent, but it's ultimately how they respond to the environment, how they respond to the challenge, and it's about opportunities as well. I mean, Joe, we knew physically an outstanding talent, technically an outstanding talent, and mentally has handled many successes. He's been selected for England, but again, you don't know until you put him to the first team environment. And two great examples for me: he's played Derby and he's played Norwich this year. Real challenges for a young player, but to get that experience at so young, outstanding. Obviously, Carlin that you mentioned, again, to come up off the bench, last 10 minutes in a pressurised situation away to Carrow Road, and he flourished. So again, you want that success for them. You just don't know that until you put them in the environment.
It's brave of the manager to put a 17-year-old player on in the dying moments of a game, and in a game like that. Is that an assessment you have to make, that the player's mentally up to it? I mean, just that minute, those last 5 minutes, is quite a brave thing to do, isn't it? On the manager's part.
No, very much so on that. But again, I hope people have seen that this year as well, that you have to make decisions, be brave with them decisions, and ultimately if you make them decisions, that's shown an unbelievable belief in these players and that. So as a player, you feel very confident, and obviously you may do things again that just help you to make sure you go and sort of make your mark.
When you've had a player who's played first team experience, it must be a bit difficult for them to playing in front of 18,000, then for a couple of weeks, a couple of nights later, they're playing at Sparrows Lane for an under-21 game. How do you keep them motivated to do that?
I mean, that's the challenge, Pete, that all professionals face, and that's what gives you the longevity. So if you can handle them situations, you're going to have a good career, because everyone knows that when we're successful, it's the best time ever. And that. But ultimately, you're always looking how someone's got a setback. You see it even in a 90-minute game, don't you? That someone may have 2 or 3 disappointing passes, a striker doesn't take his chance. But again, you see the quality of these people when they respond in the right way, whether it's that game or the next game, and that ultimately is what gives you the longevity in the game. And I'd say that's the same as coaches and managers as well, is it being able to handle them disappointments and setbacks.
Okay, moving on, Igor Vetokele has been one of Charlton's key players this season, finding the net 6 times so far. We caught up with the striker ahead of Saturday's trip to South Coast to hear how he's been settling into life in South London.
If I could take you back to the game against Brighton, you'd already scored, you were working very hard, it looked like your tank was empty, and then you scored again. What can you remember about that match?
Well, we were working very hard as a team, but the game against Brighton we were pushed down a little bit, and it was difficult to create chances and to be dangerous offensively, but yeah, we tried to do it with the chances that we had, and yeah, we didn't expect to score a goal again, and yeah, then we scored, and unfortunately last minute we get a goal against.
After that match, you were awarded the Player of the Month. for the Championship. You were away, so Bob picked it up for you. After that, do you think maybe you've been targeted a bit by defenders?
Yeah, certainly. I think they focused more on me, and we also changed a little bit the style of playing, and yeah, it was a little bit more difficult to create chances and to score for me, but I always try to do my best for the team, and it's not the one who scores the most important, but as long as we can keep on winning or not losing, that's most important for us.
You mentioned that change in style. I think it was evidenced possibly against Norwich when you were quite isolated perhaps up front a little bit, but you were working incredibly hard for the team, you know, especially towards the end, and we grabbed the goal, and you know, perhaps that was a good example of the change of style and how you still fit into the team there.
Yeah, it's a very good example. Our team spirits, let's say, everyone working very hard, and it doesn't matter who scores. We're always happy to get 3 points. One week can be me, other week can be Jacko or someone else. So yeah, that's just a way of showing the different style that we played.
What would you see as a successful season for Charlton this year?
I don't know. I just hope we can keep on going that way, win as much as possible, and just have a comfortable season.
Okay, that was just a snippet of the interview with Igor, and you can once again see the whole thing on A.F.C Player. Damien, before we move on, we've got to spend some time and talk about Igor. What a player he's been for us this year.
No, I mean, he's a fantastic striker in terms of the Brentford game where he scores the header. Then you saw goals like Brighton, where it's good passes from Simon Church for the second one, but individual ability. Other games where it's just been a reaction, and he's got all types of goals, which is, as a player playing with him, you must think it gives you confidence. As a coach, you always have that belief that he's going to, if he has a chance, he's going to take it. So, no, he's been excellent, Igor. Really good.
Absolutely frightening defences, aren't they? You talk about that Brentford game scoring, he's scored a couple of headers, isn't he? Yeah. You look at him, he's 5'10", 5'11", and you don't think he's going to be able to beat some of these defenders, and yet he gets this leap out of nowhere. Yeah. But that was something we knew he had in his locker when he came, and I think Bob, obviously, that's important that he knew him so well, isn't it?
Very much so. And that, I mean, he's probably he was a well sought after player, and that, and to have that opportunity that the gaffer worked with him before, obviously helped us sort of steal the march on other clubs, and he settled in, as we mentioned about the other signings earlier, and that, and we've been impressed with their professionalism, and they've been really sort of impressed with the quality of the club and the standard of the club, and yeah, hopefully long may it continue.
Okay, we're going to move on now. We've been asking the fans to send their questions in for you on Twitter, Facebook, and all the social media outlets that we've got. We're going to kick off. First question is from Jacob Moffat. How do Bob's coaching methods differ from the others you've worked with?
I mean, it's been interesting because obviously Ian Dowie very shortly, and then Alan Pardew, obviously Les Reed for a tiny bit, then Alan Pardew I should say, Phil Parkinson, Chris Powell, and Jose Riga, and now Bob, and really enjoyed everyone and their different styles. It's great when a manager comes in, as alluded to earlier, in that, in terms of he's very clear, Bob, how he wants to train, how he wants to play. Then he gives obviously the opportunity to all the coaches to have their input. So very short, very sharp sessions, very challenging sessions as well. So, and I think you see that in terms of the quality of our play, that we pass the ball well. We are bright in terms of how we want to play, and it's evolving all the time as well. And that, so we've got different challenges and different sort of problems that we face in games, and ultimately then you're learning as you carry on training and playing. So no, I've enjoyed working with Bob, and well, hopefully that success will continue.
Okay, next one is from Phil on Twitter, just Phil, no surname. It seems that when we've gone a goal up this season, we've been a bit defensive. Is that policy, or is that an instinctive reaction from the players?
Yeah, and also I think we spoke about it earlier, it's the quality of the division as well. We've seen ourselves, for example, come from behind this season, and again you see it with teams and that. I mean, we probably had sort of 2 good chances to win the Birmingham game, for example, and if you go 2-0 up, then it's out of sight and that, you know, but then obviously they equalise and it's disappointing and that. But that's football, and what we need to turn in is obviously, as you just mentioned, when you're winning 1-0, if we can get that second goal, then I'm sure the confidence will flow, and we've shown when we've done that how successful we can be. So it's no policy. I mean, it's ultimately that we have our game plan, we play to that game plan, but then we also, after the game, you've got to give respect to the opposition as well, who might have done something to change, and we're still learning to hopefully cope with that change and move forward.
Ross on the A.F.C. wall says you've progressed through the ranks at Charlton in terms of coaching positions. Do you have an ambition to be a manager one day?
No, very much so, Pete. I mean, it's you never say, oh, I want to be a manager tomorrow, or I want to be a manager in 5 years. If an opportunity arises, then you discuss it. I mean, going back to when I was a youth team coach, I had the opportunity to go and be interviewed at Aldershot, which I did. Phil Parkinson's blessing to go and have that experience, and ultimately, though, it was a decision because they went for more experience than a guy called Kevin Dillon. But I enjoyed the process, and basically it was an opportunity to go and speak to people to see what their philosophy was about. But I have no ambition to leave Charlton because you're well respected here. I enjoy the work that I've got here, but ultimately one day there'll be that chance, and if it's right, then hopefully talk to the club or see what direction everyone wants to go in.
Okay, last question is from Ronald Paul on Facebook. He says, do you think Carl Grant could have a surprise impact for the first team this season?
Without trying to put any pressure on someone who I feel is still very young but very talented. And we used John Joe as an example earlier, and that is that sometimes age is just a number, and what you have to look at is the talent and the player. And if he can handle it and he does well, then he'll flourish in that. But also you've got to be mindful that this is a real tough division, and he's still a young player who's going to be a very good talent in the future, but he's still learning. So time will tell.
His decision making from last season, where we saw him playing for the under 18s and possibly for the development squad, seems to have improved. He's more. Sometimes you go off and you'd think, man, you should have passed or you should have. But now something seems to have clicked.
Very much so. And I think it's again when young players have the opportunity to train more regularly with the first team, which obviously Carlin has started to do a lot more recently. Joe's really done that since pre-season. It can help you develop, and excellent setup we've got in the 21s, excellent setup with the 18s, but ultimately players want to be in the top environment. The top environment is the first team level, so and as long as they still keep the mentality that they're learning and develop, because you never stop learning for me. I mean, we've got players that, Andre Bikey, great experience in that, but he'll come and ask questions and want to develop, so he's got good role models around him, Carlin, as well, and he's got a bright future in the game.
Okay, following today's press day, we spoke to Paul Green, sports editor at The New Shopper, to see what he made of today's press conference and give his opinion on Saturday's trip to Bournemouth.
Right, Paul, we've just had Bob Peeters' pre-match Bournemouth press conference. First of all, what were your reflections on it?
There's a lot of generic stuff. I talk about Belgium, gets questioned about that quite a lot. So I only found out myself today that Jan Kermigan wasn't playing. That was a bit of a surprise to me. I think he seemed quite keen to keep the unbeaten run going as well. So yeah, good. He seemed in good mood.
Mm-hmm. He obviously also was asked about young players being overplayed. Obviously, with the amount of academy players we've got in the team, that I suppose is a worry to him. What did you make of his answers for that?
Yeah, I think he'll manage that well. He's obviously quite keen to play kids. He's already shown that. But I think he's getting the balance right. He's got a lot of experienced players. He hasn't changed the team much this year, although he has handed debuts to some kids. The team has been quite settled, so I think he'll manage the youth quite well, as and when they need to.
Obviously, a relatively new manager, or head coach as we should call him now. What have you made to him so far from a press point of view? How's he been to deal with?
Yeah, he's really good. He's very funny. I like someone with a sense of humour. He's a bit off the wall, and you can see that sometimes on the touchline during match days as well. So I think, yeah, he's brought a bit of upbeat mood to Charlton press conferences, certainly.
And how about Charlton's start so far? What have you made of it? Obviously unbeaten, but a lot of draws.
A lot of draws. Obviously unbeaten, that's as you mentioned. But I mean, what I'm looking for from Charlton is a 90-minute performance. We've had a lot of sort of starts where it's been 20 minutes, been quite strong, and then struggling for the rest of the game. What I'd like to see from Charlton is a full, from start to finish, 90 minutes dominating a team and getting a great. Obviously the results have been great, but getting like a 3 or 4-0 win, I think that's what the fans want to see as well.
Really tough match on Saturday up to Bournemouth. How do you think we'll get on? Have you got a prediction for that one?
A draw. That's what I'll be getting the next. No, I mean, if you offered a draw now, I think a lot of fans would take that because that is a tough place to go, as you say. Going to the first leg last season, losing 2-1. So yeah, tough place to go. No Yano, which is good. Yeah, I'd probably call that a 1-1 draw if I'm being honest.
Okay, so Paul Green thinks it's going to be another draw for Charlton, chaps. What do we think?
He will get splinters sitting on that fence, won't he? I think it's going to be as Damian said, Bournemouth like to play football, and I think and we can play. I think it's a good game for us, and I think definitely we'll get something out of it. I think we're going to win it. We're going to nick it, 2-1.
Damo, from a coach's point of view, what can we expect from Bournemouth?
I mean, they're a good side. I was just thinking about the games we've had against them over the sort of few years, and obviously League One as well. They've always been close games as well. So, I mean, without making a prediction, which is not sitting on the fence, because we go into every game believing we're going to win. So, but ultimately, over that 90 minutes, it'll be about the quality of the team that takes their chances, and then also has the quality to keep the ball and perform.
There's a few players on either side that have played for each. One in particular that stands out is Royce Wiggins. Probably seems to get a bit of a hard time from the Bournemouth fans. It's like a water off a duck's back to him, though, and it just seems to make him a little bit stronger.
No, very much so. And I mean, he has a little chuckle to himself, Royce, and I know he's part of the character of any good player. But Royce is an excellent player, and he was very successful there. And sometimes you have to take it that it's a backhanded compliment that they miss his quality. They've obviously had Ian Hart and got Charlie Daniels, and that were both good players, but Royce Wiggins is an exceptional talent in this division, and we talked about it earlier, how that his relationship with sort of Pew was a real threat for Bournemouth over the years, and that. But yeah, he enjoys going back there. All players like to have that bit of pressure, don't they, put on them, and I'm sure he'll handle it no problem.
On the flip side, you have Simon Francis. He'll be being booed by the Charlton fans, just as Royce will be by the Bournemouth fans. You saw him here when he was here. Didn't quite happen for him, did it? But he's really flourished at Bournemouth. No,
very much so. No, I mean, you could see at times his good quality, a lot on the training pitch in Simon's defence, and a lot of people had belief that he would have the quality to come through. Spoke about it earlier that we sort of had Cole Jenkinson and Chris Solly sort of bubbling under as well now, and I think he had that pressure to deal with as well. But he's gone to Bournemouth and he's absolutely flourished now, and we've seen it many times. It happens at football clubs. A player will come, and it's a great club, and also there's been a lot of pressure at this football club for players to handle as well, and some can handle it, others unfortunately don't handle it, but then sort of get their careers going again. Apart from Saturday, we wish Franny all the best, and look forward to seeing him.
Jan Kermagant not playing, so we're not going to see Jan up against Andre Biko, which is a crying shame, really, because that would have been a glorious battle, I think.
No, very much so. I mean, it's. I mean, even last year when Jan came back and I know he came off the bench, and then he got a great reception by the fans. And
well, you think the duck out of the way nicely for Dorian to score
a favour,
in the last minute.
Did us all a favour.
Exactly. You'll have to ask Dorian and how close they really was in that. But yeah, no, Jan was an exceptional talent here. Did very, very well for the club, and I know how well respected he was, not only by the fans but staff alike. So it'd be good to see him, and it's even better he's not playing.
It is, yeah. He's going to score sooner or later against him, isn't he?
When you see that he was given that red card against Bolton, wasn't it, a couple of weeks ago, is there a little bit of a... Because we know what he's capable of, and is there a little bit of that going on, a bit of a relief?
Yeah, I mean, he started the season very well, didn't he, in terms of... last season, so where he scored a lot of goals, and been tougher for him this year. But we didn't hear till after the game, and yes, we're respectful of Jan, but again, if we had faced him, he would have faced a real challenge in Andre as well. So again, it goes back to what we said earlier, that we have every confidence in every game we go to, and you want to be challenged. You actually want to play against the best, and arguably Jan is a strong player in this division.
They've made a signing from Coventry in the summer, Callum Wilson, 6 goals and 11 goals. Sort of mirrors Igor Vetokele's stats, but he's going to be a real threat on Saturday, isn't he?
No, very much so, Pete. I mean, he's a really good player. I mean, he's a goal threat, as you mentioned. But what's impressed me as well is his work, you know, in terms of wanting to play on the shoulder, to wanting to affect defenders down the sides, and he'll be someone that we will obviously pay a lot of attention to.
Is that something you look at on the analysts, from the analyst point of view? You look at how he plays, and you talk to the defenders. This is how you're going to have to deal with him. Well, the defenders will probably know roughly how to deal with them themselves once they've seen that sort of video. That's a big part of football now, isn't it?
No, very much so. I mean, we've had an excellent week's training, and obviously we get reports as staff. The players will see the presentation tomorrow, and be well versed on and visually seeing what the other players' strengths are. So they'll be well covered. It's just as we mentioned earlier, going out there and being able to nullify that and doing that well over 90 minutes.
And working out who he's going to be playing alongside on Saturday. That's the other thing, isn't it, with Jan missing?
Very much so. So they've got Pittman, they've got Ranty that could be involved. So they've got a good squad, Bournemouth, from that, and they've got some sort of strength in depth. So we'll see what challenges they throw at us.
We've talked about Francis and we've talked about Jan, and another one who we're very familiar with, didn't make a first team appearance for Charlton, but Harry Arter's doing well at Bournemouth, isn't he? No,
very well. No, I mean, he was an ex-pupil at my secondary school as well, you know, so I used to take great glee in seeing if he actually beat my 800 metres record. But I mean, Harry was a really good talent here, and suffered with injury and had to sort of left. Took a brave decision to go into non-league with Woking, but very quickly went back into Bournemouth and has done really well for him. So, I mean, he's one that you look forward to seeing on Saturday, to see how well he has developed. And I know he's still sort of got some good friends at Charlton. His family were obviously heavily involved with Scott as well, weren't they? Involved with the club, so a lot of good history with the football club. So be good to see Harry, and similar to what we said about Franny, Jacko and Uni, if they're selected, we'll have a tough job maybe.
Okay, let's take a little look at Bournemouth's recent form. They've started the season well, had a little bit of a dip, and then the last 5 games they've really had an upturn. It does include one cup game against Cardiff City. They're a good 3-0 win, but when you look as a coach again, you look at that form, what do you think?
I mean, obviously they're a strong team, as we mentioned, in terms of their squad. They've got goal scorers, as you mentioned, like we have this year in terms of Vetokele. But then it'll be just taking Borok, haven't they, from Southampton as well. So again, experienced, and it'll be a real good test on Saturday. But again, as I alluded to earlier, I think it'll be important who takes their chances on Saturday and can then handle the football well, because both teams want to pass it. Both teams want to get it down and play the right way. So looking forward to an entertaining game.
And from our own point of view, it's going to be 3 games in 6 days, haven't we? We've got that Fulham game on the Friday, Bolton next Tuesday. How do we prepare for that with 3 games, 6 days? That's not a long.
No, it's going to be a real tough challenge in that, especially because you're coming off obviously an international break where you haven't had the game and you're in the routine. On the flip side, it's good that players have had maybe a few extra days to recover from niggles, and we'll be looking forward to the games and that. And that's why it's important that there's a good performance and ultimately a good result against Bournemouth, because it gives you the confidence for the other games. Bolton, with a new manager coming involved as well in Neil Lennon, they'll be really sort of looking to prove themselves to their new manager. And then an excellent game, a London derby. We all remember going to the cup game a few years back, and it was a fantastic atmosphere. And to be live on Sky again is a good coverage. It puts Charlton on the map, doesn't it, and gives them good coverage, which they deserve, and we feel we deserve on the start we've had so far.
And in the teams against Bolton and Fulham, ex-Charlton players in those teams at Bolton, Dorian De Beek and Andy Hughes, obviously, and at Fulham, Scott Parker, who might get a lively reception from the Charlton fans, I would think.
No, very much so. No, I mean, it's again, that's a great part of Charlton's history in that. And when you see ex-players, I know some fans will have an opinion, and they're entitled to that. But as coaching staff, you're very respectful of people who played for Charlton and who ultimately have done well for the club. So yeah. Before the game, there'll be a few pleasantries, and then hopefully even more pleasantries when we beat them afterwards.
On Bolton, it may be a bit of a shame that Neil Lennon was given the job this week, not a chance to go over to the other dugout and shake Andy Hughes' hand.
No, very much so. No, I mean, I'm not sure. Obviously, he spoke to him a few times, and he's enjoying his role in terms of the experience he had with the first team, but ultimately with the under-21. So yeah, if we see Hughes, it'd be good to see him. But yeah, no, he was a good servant for his football club, and a good person, and a good player.
How did preparations change when you're preparing to face a team without a manager for a while, and they've been playing a certain style under Dougie Freedman, and suddenly when Neil Lennon comes in, does everything get flipped upside down? Does everything then start again? How do you prepare for that?
I mean, I know in the staff, I know Patrick, for example, and that had seen Fulham a few times, and went to the actual Fulham-Bolton game recently, and that, which unfortunately was Dougie's last game. So we obviously get a lot of the video highlights of 90 minutes of games and that. So we'll be well versed in how they're going to play. Obviously, we'll get Saturday's game covered as well on that. So in terms of Tuesday's game, we'll be well versed in how they play, because they may change something under Neil Lennon, and then we'll see what Tuesday brings.
Okay, before the international break, Saturday's opponents Bournemouth faced a tough trip north to Bolton Wanderers against a Trotter side managed by Andy Hughes, as we just mentioned. Here's the highlights, which feature more than one familiar face.
It's been a turbulent 24 hours for Bolton, with manager Dougie Freedman leaving the club on Friday. Goalkeeper coach Lee Turner and player coach Andy Hughes take charge for the visit of Bournemouth. Wilson leaves the ball and Kermigan's shot almost crept in early in the game. Lonergan tested. Here's Craig Davis now. Flag stays down. Davis into the area. Went and tried to beat Artur Boric at his near post. The goalkeeper well positioned to save. That ball from Pugh in field, and the shot is turned around the post. And a good save from Lonergan. Wilson gets in between three defenders, then tumbles inside the penalty area. Referee gives a free kick. Well, it was right on the edge. It's a booking, but it could have been worse for Bolton, as Mills is given a yellow card. Still a free kick in a dangerous looking area. It was right on the chalk of the penalty area. Daniels stands over the ball, but he leaves it, and the free kick is whipped in and headed off the line. It was a crucial intervention. And that was a high boot from Kermigan, who is shown a straight red card. Andre Mariner, hesitation in brandishing the red card as he lost control of the ball. Kermigan's went in with a high boot, and the Frenchman sent off. Bournemouth down to 10 men, and we're not even at half-time. Davis comes away with the ball. In the end, the effort is dragged wide. Gets it out to Matt Ritchie, former Swindon man, yet to score this season. Skips around one challenge, and it was an awkward one for Lonergan. Had to turn the ball away. It seems to bounce up awkwardly in front of the goalkeeper. Here's Jermaine Beckford onto his left foot. Side netting. Jermaine Beckford's first start of the season, looking for his first league goal. Ball is played in behind the defence here, and Bournemouth may have an opportunity to take the lead, which they take. Francis supplied the ammunition, and Callum Wilson finds the bottom corner just a minute into the second half. Bolton thrashed 4-0 at Fulham in midweek. That was the final straw for the club's hierarchy. Davis manages to find Spearing. Jay Spearing shoots, it's in! And it's a moment of inspiration from the Bolton captain. Jay Spearing's first goal of the season. It took a deflection, but still a great strike. Bolton come forward looking for a second goal here. Lee Chung-Young. Oh, it's turned away by Artur Boric. Here's Tim Ream. Craig Davis. Oh, cross-come shot, just needed a touch at the far post. Good ball is played forward, and it's Wilson! It's his second of the game, and Bournemouth are back in front. Callum Wilson scores his 6th league goal of the season. Chested down, and a neat finish. Bolton Wanderers now 5 points adrift at the foot of the table, as Eddie Howe's men take away all 3 points.
Okay, we've had a few comments and questions from you guys on Twitter. Pete, you've got them there?
Yeah, Daz wants to know how's Churchy doing? He's picked up an injury in the game for Wales the other night.
Yeah, I mean, shame for him, Pete, really, because obviously great accolade, isn't it, to play for your country. And at the moment, I know, speaking to Elle, he'd had the scan, and I think it's sort of the next couple of days make the sort of final assessment, really. So yeah, I'll have a better understanding probably tomorrow.
Yeah, it'd be a good few weeks though, wouldn't it? Easily.
Yeah, no, very much so, which is a shame.
Robbie on Twitter said, which player has impressed you most in the Championship this season?
I mean, obviously with Norwich being top, you look at the quality of Redmond. I watched him play for the England under-21s Friday night as well, who's an exciting talent. Got Wes Houlihan as well on that. So as it stands, you always probably look to the team that's top of the table, and I know I'm not surprised to have looked good with Asablonga as well on that. So at the moment, I'll probably go for a Nathan Redmond at the moment. He's exciting me and is a talented player.
Of the Charlton players, anyone that stands out?
I mean, we mentioned him earlier now. I mean, you go through the spine, we mentioned earlier, in terms of Stephen Henderson and Tao and Andre, and then Jacko and Yuni and Igor. So I think that spine's been really consistent as well. And as I mentioned, a fit Chris Solly is always a standout player for me in any team. So yeah, good start so far.
Excellent.
Okay, tickets for Charlton's upcoming matches are now on sale and can be bought online, over the phone or in person from the ticket office. Away tickets for Saturday's match against Bournemouth are sold out, but tickets for the home matches against Bolton and Sheffield Wednesday and the away matches against Fulham, Reading and Leeds United are now on general sale. If you can't make it to the Goldson Stadium on Saturday, you can always listen to Pete's commentary on our Matchday live service on CFC Player, starting from 2:30 p.m. After the final whistle, CFC Player subscribers can watch post-match reaction from Bob Peeters. Okay, Damo, we're nearly coming to the end of the evening, but as you may or may not have seen over the last couple of weeks, we've had a bit of fun with our guests, and we've trudged through the archives and found 5 photos from throughout your career. And what you want to do is have a look up on the screen, and you've got to try and guess which year they were taken. So the first one there, against Charlton in the reserves game, I believe.
Yeah, just I'm going to say 98 or 99. So let's go.
Northampton.
Yeah, Northampton. I mean, Matty Holmes, is that?
That's Matt Holmes.
Yeah. So I can't remember if I'd come off the back and hip operation there, because looking rather slim and slender. So I'm going 98.
That's 1999. Apparently. Not a bad guess. Next one.
Look at that.
That's a great kit.
The away kit more than anything else is.
That was a great kit. Again, these are guesses, so I'm going to go 91.
Oh, good guess, 91. Absolutely correct. Oh, there we go. Barnet is what I'm thinking there.
Yeah, it is a bad haircut now. I'm trying to get what it is. That's Northampton as well, I think. So I want to say 98.
That's 99. You see, you've had your hair cut somewhere in between that one and the other one.
I'm used to this, Pete.
It's harsh, mate.
Yeah.
Okay, going back a little bit further with this next one.
Oh.
I finally found that. I've got Brett to put that on the laptop the other day. So that was 91.
1990.
Oh, I'm getting worse than me age now.
When you were an England under-21 player.
Yeah, correct, playing that. I mean, I'm looking at it because we actually won that game 3-2 at Old Trafford, so it's a great year.
And here we are for that other lot against Liverpool.
I know. I mean, there's the one who's get more stick than me is obviously John Humphreys there. That is number 2. So was an outstanding fullback, and as always, he made me look how close I am, because he always made me sort of get 50 yards running backwards instead of going forward. But I'm going to say that was probably 95.
95, spot on. Damon, we haven't really spoken about your playing career much this evening, but quite distinguished. England under-21, you played in the same Toulon tournament. You won it with Alan Shearer.
Twice you won it, didn't you?
Yeah. That's right, Pete.
I mean, happy days, obviously.
Great, and it's ironic because coming over tonight, I was listening to the radio, and Shearer was actually talking about his time in the 21s when we actually won Toulon 2 years running. And because the debate was, should players go back to the, if they played in the national team, should they go back into the 21s? And his take was, if you play in the first team, then you shouldn't go back. And I would echo that. And if you're a player that's maybe just been in the squad for the national team and you need to go and experience that championship and go and be successful, then playing the 21s and that. But yeah, no, I loved that time. I mean, I consider myself to have been a very good young player at the time who had opportunities that we all got then, and then as many barriers as there is now. And unfortunately for me, I suffered with quite a few injuries and that. I mean, I was quite slender, as the pictures show there. And again, when you look at the quality of the sports science departments you have now, and that's why I'm very respectful, and I've always been a big supporter of sports science, because I know from my own career that how important it is that you need to be well looked after from the physical point of view. So loved my time at Chelsea, went to Palace, and it was a great time in terms of young players. Excellent manager in Alan Smith. Again, didn't quite go so well, and I took the gamble and really enjoyed my time up at Burnley. And then unfortunately for me, I had a back operation, hip operation, and had to finish young, 29 years old. But I never had any regrets, because ultimately you've done what you set out to do, which was to be a professional. Realised most boys' dreams, and as we saw there, and it's great seeing them old pictures of playing in great places, playing with good players as well, being coached by many, many good people. So I'm very fortunate. I'm 44 years old now, and you've been in the game sort of since 15 years old. So you always feel quite privileged that you've been in it so long.
You talk about the injuries you had and the respect you've got now for, you know, the Blue and people like that, all the extra stuff you didn't have back in the early 90s.
Very much so.
Do you think, had you been playing in these current times, do you think your career would have been prolonged? No,
very much so. No, it's a question that me and a debate that me and Ben Roberts have, because we both finished at the same age. We both finished at 29. Ben had a back operation too, I think. I had a back and hip operation. And we just talk about how the information and the education for young players, but also for coaches as well, and how it has evolved, and how much better it is really physically for the players and that. So of course you're still going to get players when they get to our age with aches and pains and that, but hopefully their career wouldn't have been cut short by, as you say, a lack of knowledge. It would probably be the best term to use at the time. But as I said, no regrets. Had a wonderful time. Achieved what I wanted to do, and always on the flip side, I started coaching young, 29, so you feel well balanced in terms of learning and trying to be the best you can in that field as well.
Okay, we're coming to the end of the show. There's just time for me to thank Peter Finch and Damian Matthew for joining us tonight, and wish him and the lads all the best of luck ahead of Saturday's clash at Bournemouth. And of course, thank you for watching. We'll see you there.